The ancient Olympic Games, rooted in ancient Greece, were held in honor of the god Zeus. They commenced in the city of Olympia in 776 BC and took place every 4 years for over a millennium, until their cessation in 393 AD, when the Roman Emperor Theodosius I banned pagan and non-Christian events. Athletes competed in disciplines such as racing, discus and javelin throwing, wrestling, pancration, a combination of wrestling and boxing, or hoplitodromos, a race where competitors wore heavy armor and shields. These games were not only a display of athletic skills, but also an opportunity for Greek city-states to demonstrate their greatness and form cultural bonds. A unique aspect of the ancient Olympic Games was the Olympic Truce, a period of peace established during the Games to allow athletes and spectators to travel safely to Olympia from different Greek regions. Throughout the Games, a flame burned on the altar of Olympia, symbolizing the sacred fire stolen by Prometheus and given to humanity. From Antiquity to Modernity, the evolution of the Olympic Games. The revival of this historic sports competition took place in the late 19th century. The initiative to revive the Olympic Games came from Baron Pierre de Coubertin, a French educator who advocated for the importance of physical activity in sports competition as means to promote peace and international understanding. Coubertin led the founding of the International Olympic Committee, IOC, in 1894. Finally, in 1896, Athens hosted the first edition of the modern Olympic Games, with 14 countries and around 280 athletes, marking the beginning of a tradition that has continued to this day. In this first edition, Greek athlete Spiridon Lewis became a local hero by winning the first Olympic marathon. The race started in the city of Marathon and ended in the Athens Stadium, covering a distance of about 40 kilometers in 2 hours 58 minutes 50 seconds. In the early modern Olympics, medals had a simple but symbolic design. Due to economic circumstances, the winners' medals were not made of gold but of silver and were accompanied by an olive wreath and a certificate. It was not until the 1904 Games held in St. Louis that the 3 metals used today, gold, silver and bronze, were awarded. Since then, the Olympic Games have become a global event that brings together athletes from all over the world every 4 years. The iconic Olympic rings, a universally recognized symbol, were conceived by Pierre de Coubertin in 1913. The choice of these colors was because all national flags contain at least one of these shades. The connection of the rings symbolizes the union of athletes from around the world, regardless of their origin or nationality. These rings made their first appearance at the 1920 Antwerp Olympic Games, becoming since then an emblem that transcends borders and cultures. The 1924 Paris Olympics, besides being the first to incorporate a logo, were the first to set up an Olympic village as residence for the more than 3,000 summoned athletes. The goal was to concentrate the athletes in one place and make their lives easier to attend the competitions. However, it took 32 years for the area where the athletes stayed to be officially named the Olympic Village. Also in France that same year, the Winter Olympic Games were born, specifically in Chamonix with the participation of 16 countries. On July 28, 1928, the Amsterdam Olympic Games were officially inaugurated. It was in that edition that the myth of the Olympic flame was born. One of the most notable features of the Olympic Stadium was a 40-meter-high tower annex. The top of the tower functioned as the first Olympic cauldron in history, which, however, was not lit by an athlete, but by a gas company employee. The first Olympic torch was lit in Olympia in 1936 at the Berlin Olympic Games, and since then, this tradition has been maintained. The torch relay begins months before each edition of the Games. The Olympic flame is lit in Olympia in a ceremony that reflects ancient Greek rites. A female artist acting as a priestess lights a torch by placing it inside a parabolic mirror that concentrates the sun's rays. From this moment, a relay route begins, carried out by numerous notable personalities, including athletes, artists, political leaders, or cultural figures. The torch relay ends at the opening ceremony with the lighting of the cauldron. Over the years, the torch has visited numerous iconic monuments and historical sites on its way to the stadium, where the opening ceremony of the host country is held. Olympic mascots have been endearing companions of the Olympic Games for decades. The first official mascot emerged at the Munich 1972 Games with Waldy, a dachshund that represents tenacity and endurance. Over the years, these mascots have become adorable representatives of the Games, embodying values and cultural aspects of the host country. The modern Olympic Games have been cancelled on 3 occasions throughout their history due to extraordinary circumstances. In 1916, they were cancelled due to World War I, while the 1940 and 1944 editions were not held due to World War II. The number of participating countries and athletes in the Olympic Games has increased over the years, except for editions affected by boycotts due to various international conflicts or exclusions of some countries for not respecting human rights. In 1980, more than 60 countries boycotted the Moscow Olympic Games in protest against the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. In an act of retaliation, the Soviet Union and other countries from the communist bloc boycotted the Los Angeles Olympic Games in 1984. South Africa was excluded from the Olympic competitions between 1964 and 1992 due to its apartheid policy, which promoted racial discrimination. At the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games, Afghanistan did not participate due to the restrictive policies of the Taliban regime, which prohibited women's participation. Women did not participate in the Olympic Games until Paris 1900. These games were historic for being the first to include specific events for women. Although female participation was limited, 22 women compared to 995 men. Some events were not officially recognized as part of the Games at that time. Charlotte Cooper, United Kingdom, in tennis, and Hilinde Portales, Switzerland, in sailing are considered the first female Olympic medalists in history. Since their restoration in 1896, the Olympic Games have also grown in the number of sports disciplines. Many sports have become Olympic over time. While the first Athens 1896 Games featured only 9 sports, the Tokyo 2020 Games incorporated a total of 33, with various specific disciplines in some of them. However, some sports have disappeared, such as tug of war. It consisted of 2 teams competing to pull a rope in opposite directions. The team that managed to drag the opponents towards its side was the winner. It was present in the Olympic Games from Paris 1900 to Paris 1924. Other disappeared sports include artistic roller skating, cricket, croquet, and Basque pelotas, which was present in the Athens 1896 and Paris 1900 Games. Technological advancements have also led to a constant improvement of marks and Olympic records. In swimming, for example, the evolution from woolen swimsuits, which covered much of the body and added extra effort for the athlete, to smaller swimsuits made with more aerodynamic and low-resistance material. Pole vaults are another good example. In the early modern Olympic Games, they were made of wood, generally bamboo, heavier and less flexible. In the 50s and 60s, metal poles, mainly aluminium, were introduced, making them lighter and allowing greater flexibility. In the 80s, fiberglass poles became more popular, and currently, carbon fiber is used, a material that is also used in competition bicycles. The same has happened with any sport component, such as shoes, bicycles, bows, or other materials necessary for carrying out the tests, like trampolines or stopwatches. The evolution of rules and sports techniques has also allowed for improved athletic performance and increased the spectacle and excitement of the competitions. All this, accompanied by the implementation of technology in sports and medical advances, has helped improve the physical condition of athletes. Nonetheless, despite improvements every 4 years, some athletes have set standards in places difficult to surpass. It is evident that there will continue to be significant and relevant changes in future Olympic Games, and in sports in general. Sports currently exemplify one of the most influential human expressions in society. Entities dedicated to preservation, such as the National Library of Spain, will continue to keep testimony of all these changes.